Hey, let's welcome in from Baseball America, J.J. Cooper. Let's talk a little bit about Thursday. The latest Rule 5 draft is coming. And, J.J., here's what we know about the Orioles. The last time they did not select in the Rule 5 draft, Fever Pitch was a hot movie. We still call them the Devil Rays, and the White Sox won the World Series. It was 2005, so that's 14 straight years. And Mike Elias on National Access today kind of indicated we can expect a 15th, barring something real surprising, that they'll take somebody. So first of all, let me ask you, without a minor league season in 2020, how does that impact the Rule 5 this year?
It makes it I've been covering the Rule 5 draft for more years than I would like to admit, and I don't think there's any question this is the weirdest Rule 5 draft that I've ever covered, because normally everyone who was available in last year's Rule 5 draft would either have added to their resume. Jake Cronenworth was available a couple years ago. The next year is a big year. And, we're not going to leave him unprotected for another year. So he gets added to the 40-man, and then all of a sudden he becomes the standout player. Or other guys have that year where they came into the year, their first year of Rule 5 eligibility, and you thought, oh, this might be an interesting pick. And then they go out that next year and they have a bad year, and by the next year rolls around, there's no chance that you're taking that guy in the Rule 5 draft. None of that's the case this year. We have everyone who was available in last year's Rule 5 draft, with very few exceptions. And then you add another class to that, but the class that you add to that, they didn't get a chance to add to their resumes this year either. And so you always have that tug of war, that push-pull that comes with the Rule 5 draft. Do you want to take this low Class A, promising, toolsy player who's still 3 steps away from the major leagues? Well, those were the rare cases in a normal year. This year, there are a lot of those guys because they're players who were supposed to go to high A or double A in 2020, and they spent the year at home instead. And so you don't have a great answer on those guys. Are there teams out there who are willing to take one of those players and kind of stash them on their on their roster all year? Maybe. Do we even know exactly what the makeup of the MLB active roster is going to be? No, we don't. So there's a lot of unknowns there, and so we'll see what happens with that. But it does make it for a crazy, unpredictable Rule 5 draft.
We've heard it called over the years a free look at another team's player. You can always send that player back. Is that word free not fit anymore in a COVID situation where revenue is down in Major League Baseball and any cost is a cost?
Oh, if you told me that there are teams who may just bail out of the Rule 5 draft because it's $100,000 to draft a major league player in it. Now you could get $50,000 of that back, but $100,000 being simply too much for a team in this year where teams are laying off scouts who are making well less than $100,000, coaches who are making well under $100,000. Absolutely, that's possible. At the same time, if you hit on a Rule 5 pick, if you hit on Anthony Santander, to give an example that the Orioles did very well with, the value that you get back from that player is so far beyond the $100,000 acquisition price that I do think you're still going to have a lot of teams looking at this, because if you can acquire a player who would have cost you significantly more than that on the free agent market, then the $100,000 in that comparison doesn't seem nearly as high.
So, JJ, last year, 11 players were taken in the Major League phase. The Orioles took 2 pitchers. They were sent back before baseball was halted in March. Do you think we go to 11 again, more, less?
Then there was also another 40-some in the minor league phase. I think we're going to see a lot in the minor league phase this year. On the major league side, I probably would say less right now, although I am hearing a lot of, I'm hearing names. I'm hearing teams sniffing around. So I don't think it's going to be something where we show up, have a major league Rule 5 draft, and everyone says pass. I do think we're going to see some names called, but 11 may be a little high this year, just because of the unpredictability of how many teams are going to say, even just the optics of spending $100,000 when we're trying to cut payroll and in every way possible may look bad for them.
So I know you're preparing and you're putting out material already today and all week on this as you continue to add to your list. what might the Orioles be looking at? And I think fans would gravitate towards infielders. They just non-tendered Hanser Alberto. They traded Jose Iglesias. And it looks like some top 30-ish infielders are available this week.
If you're wanting infielders, I do think it's a pretty good class in the Rule 5 class for infielders, and a lot of different types of infielders. To me, Kyle Holder is a guy, first-round pick of the Yankees 4 years ago out of college. He's a really good glove. There's some questions about the bat, but if you said, could he do a passable job of playing Major League defense? Absolutely. Could he hit enough to where he's not just a complete zero at the plate? I think that's possible too. So he's one that stands out to me. There are a whole lot of players who fit kind of, I would say, the more traditional model of a Rule 5. There are not usually a whole lot of shortstops. The Orioles obviously did get Richie Martin a couple of years ago, but there's not usually a whole lot of true shortstops who are available in the Rule 5 draft, and especially not shortstops who can hit at all. I would say this year there are more, as there usually are, of the second baseman, third baseman who they may be a little bit challenged defensively, but they can hit. And I think there are a number of guys like that. Andy Ibanez, Omar Estevez, Dodgers infielder Omar Estevez, Andy Ibanez, Rangers third baseman, second baseman's a little bit older but has 2 years of AAA experience under his belt. Sherman Newton, who's a toolsier player, a little further away with the Mets, is another guy who kind of fits that group. There are a lot of them. I think I now have something like 15 infielders listed in our Rule 5 preview, just because there are more of those than there are outfielders who really have a chance to hit for some average and some power.
Are any of those, and again, I don't expect you to have every scouting report on every player, although years.
I hope I do in my head.
Years you pretty much could. I mean, deep glove first or plus glove. Anything come to mind in the infield?
That's Holder to me. That's Holder. Kyle Holder was drafted when he was drafted out of college, out of San Diego, if I remember correctly. We had scouts who were putting a 7 on his glove. So plus glove. I think that might end up being a little bit rich, but I don't think there's any question. This is a major league shortstop defensively. He has experience in the upper levels of the minors. This isn't someone you're asking to make that jump from. This isn't a player who's the 20-year-old who hasn't played out of the Appy League but has the tools to do this. I think he could be a reasonably reliable defender as well. So that's one that kind of stands out that fits kind of that criteria.
Pitching-wise, there's a whole lot of names on the pitching front.
Always are.
Are any of them separating yourself, do you think, towards the top, or is beauty in the eye of the beholder here, and one team might rank a guy 8th and another would rank him 28th?
I think there is absolutely a part of this that teams have their different parameters. There's a lot of analytics that go into this now in addition to scouting. So if you say we want the best, carry in the upper zone of fastballs that are 95 plus, well, you can do a couple of sorts with all the TrackMan data they have and kind of filter that out. The theme that I will say is there are a lot of Dodgers pitchers who I could make plausible cases for why a team might pick them. And a lot of that Rays pitchers, I could say the same thing. And that's not surprising. These are two of the best organizations in baseball as far as player development. These are two of the best organizations as far as pitching development. And so they're teams that can, Brett DeGeist being an example, 33rd rounder, if I remember correctly. I'm hoping I get my numbers right on this, but 33rd rounder out of JUCO, junior Cabrillo, California Junior College a few years ago. Wasn't throwing that hard when he did. Gets to the Dodgers. They help him improve. All of a sudden, he's throwing in the mid-90s. He's got some field of pitch. He's got some other, some secondaries. And that's a guy who you could make a plausible case as being a useful reliever. You could take, guys in the Rays system and say some of the same things. Paul Campbell in the Rays system. There's several other guys in the Rays system you could say that about too. Those are two organizations that stand out as some that, that teams will be sniffing around, because the reality is both of them have stacked farm systems. They have loaded 40-man rosters. And so they kind of both of them knew that they were just going to have guys they weren't going to be able to protect.
Let me throw some Oriole names out at you that could be are eligible to be taken. My guess is they won't, but you know more about than me. Tell me if you think any of these ring a bell, or if you have any in mind that ring a bell. Zach Pop, We hear a lot about him. Great minor league numbers. Should be healthy from the Tommy John. Mason McCoy, Cody Sedlock, Brendan Hanafy, Gray Fenter, Brett Cumberland, just 5 or 6.
The two that jump out there, I've thought about writing up McCoy, utility infielder. I mean, going back to his days at Iowa, that I think could do that. Now, at the same time, we're just sitting here talking about that the Orioles may be looking for a middle infielder, and we're talking about a guy who the Orioles did not protect, who's in the middle infield. So I'll point out, again, a lot of this is eye of the beholder, but he kind of stands out that way. Brett Cumberland's always been a catcher who is, probably more of that up and down catcher kind of guy who develops like that. But, at the same time, again, eye of the beholder, and catchers are really hard to stick in the Rule 5 draft because either they have to be your primary backup or you're carrying 3 catchers, and it's hard for Rule 5 catchers to do either of that. Zach Pop is a guy. The injuries often actually end up being a selling point for a player to get drafted in the Rule 5 because, as Anthony Santander, who had a shoulder injury and he was picked, is kind of a good example of this. If you have a legitimate injury, not a fake made-up injury, that's key because teams have been punished for that, but a legitimate injury, you can spend time on the IL recovering from that. You could even be sent to the minor leagues to have a rehab assignment to get you ready for the majors. And then you still are fulfilling your Rule 5 obligations. The key thing is you can't be optioned to the minors. Injury doesn't mean that. And you also have to stay on the active MLB roster for a minimum of 90 days. Well, if you spend half of the season on the IL and the other half on the active roster, you've fulfilled the requirements. And so a guy like Pop, who has had, an injury, maybe that actually makes him a little bit more appealing to pick.
JJ, very last thing, your reporting on the minor league situation has been exceptional for months, going further back than that. Are we going to get news soon, do you think?
I'll start with, I hope so, for the sanity of everyone involved. I talked to a lot of people, obviously, in the minor leagues, and everyone involved in minor league baseball, especially at the team level, needs to know. I mean, they want to know and they need to know. They need a schedule. They need to start moving into 2021, start being able to sell, start being able to plan, start being able to buy plane tickets if you're a AAA team, because the closer you get to the season, the more expensive those get. And this is a year that financially has already been brutal for every minor league team. But on top of that, you just need some clarity. It's December now. It's at this point, everyone needs to know. And I do think we are going to hear very soon. Major League Baseball sent a memo to Minor League Baseball a couple weeks ago and said that they would inform the 120 affiliated teams that they intend to invite to be part of their minor league system during the first week of December. Now, I noted at the time, first week of December is very vague because last week started with November 30th, but you could call last week the first week of December. But this is the last week that can be the first week of December. So if you told me that we were going to, know an answer of some sort of this on December 8th, I expect that. December 9th, okay, we're getting a little bit further than I expected. But if we don't know by December 11th, then something has gone wrong because MLB has been planning to resolve this and said that they will have the 120 invites sent out during the first week of December.
Wow, time to pay close attention to see what's going to happen. Well, JJ, thanks so much for the visit today, and we look forward to catching up with you again real soon.
I enjoy this. This is a December tradition, Steve. Me and you talking Rule 5 draft. I always look forward to it.
Thanks, JJ.